greetings to everyone watching this video. You are very welcome to this channel. I am a plantain bobo, and in this video we're talking about the fundamentals of plantain farming, and I'll be talking today from my personal experience, from my lessons, the lessons I've learned through the years, because this is my third year in plantain farming. I started 2022, and to be honest, I have learned quite a lot of things. I have made mistakes, I have corrected my mistakes, and I have developed myself. I am better than I was when I started. So yeah, I have documented all I'll be talking about today, so I'll be taking them point after the other. So I'd like to know that this video is not a hype. This video is educational, it is practical, and it is for your learning. So I'd like you to come along with us. Do well, like this video, subscribe to this channel, drop a comment or two, and help us to grow. So let's go. Just in case you have it in mind, probably you are working towards it already, you are taking a step or two, about venturing into plantain farming. The first thing I'd like you to know is to understand the plantain plant. It is very important for you to know what kind of plant the plantain is, to know essential things to gain basic knowledge about the plantain plant. So the first thing I'd say is that plantain belongs to the Musa family, which is a large herbaceous perennial crop. So plantain is a large herbaceous perennial crop that grows a pseudostem from a rhizome and produces a bunch of starchy edible fruit. So plantain is technically not a tree, but it's a gigantic herb. It is not made of woody tissues with a bark and annual growth rings like a true tree does. So like I said, it is not a tree, but it is a herbaceous plant. What do I mean by herbaceous plants? Instead of it to have a trunk like any tree would have, it is instead formed by a tightly wrapped and overlapping sheet of the plant's massive leaf. So the plantain plant, being a herb, is fleshy, full of water, and majorly fiber. So just to add to this, there's a very close relationship between the plantain and the banana, but there is one major difference. And in simple terms, a plantain is a starchy type of banana that is primarily used for cooking. It contains more starch while banana does not. So moving on, it is also important for you to know that plantains are sterile. What do I mean? They do not reproduce from seed, so they grow from suckers and not seed, and each pseudostem produces only one bunch of the fruit before dying. So just so you understand what the plantain pseudostem is, so a plantain crop, the plant is divided into three segments. We have the rhizome, which is the roots that is under the ground. That's where the suckers are generated from. Then we have the pseudostem. That is the structure that upholds the leaf of the plant. So that pseudostem is where water is stored, nutrients are packed, and that is what gives the plantain crop its structure. Once the plantain is harvested, it dies, and other proceeding sucker from the rhizome will keep the cycle going. So if you understand this life cycle, you will understand how you can succeed as a plantain farmer. You'd understand the adequate spacing for the type of crop it is. You'd understand the fertilization, pruning, and this way you can calculate your expected yield. Moving on, we'll talk about the suitable climate and location for a successful plantain farm. So I believe you'd have heard it before that plantain loves a humid tropical climate because it is a fast growing, high water demand herbaceous plant that evolved in the wet and warm, consistent conditions of the equatorial belt. So in order for any plantain farm to thrive, it will need adequate rainfall, a warm temperature of about 25 to 32 degrees Celsius. It requires full sunlight and a low to moderate wind. So plantain does not really thrive under a shady environment. It thrives when it is exposed to full sunlight. And two things you must pay attention to, that is the rainfall pattern and the wind intensity of your planting location. So strong winds can break your stem and cause major damage to the farm. So just in case you're in an area where you experience strong winds, it might not be the best place for you to plant, because there are some situations whereby after a strong wind you see your stems falling over, you see some breaking in half as a result of the strong wind. Because like I said earlier, plantain is not a woody tree that has a strong structure to uphold it. It is herbaceous, and whenever it is exposed to any extreme condition, it will either break or fall over. So yes, two things you must pay attention to, that is the rainfall pattern and the strong wind. And also, in the case of inadequate rainfall or water supply, drought, yes, in the case of drought, you have to make provisions. You have to make provisions for irrigation, just so that your plantain would get consistent water supply. Also, in area where there is excessive rainfall, waterlogging is also possible. And when your soil is waterlogged, it's going to cause root rot, and of course, nematodes thrive in a waterlogged soil. So when you plant in a waterlogged area, your plantain would suffer from nematode disease, there will be root rot, and it would kill the plant eventually. So you have to choose wisely your location, and you have to consider the climatic condition of any area you are intending to have your farm. So you must choose the right type of soil when planting your plantain. Just like any other crop, plantain needs a very fertile soil, but specifically a well-drained loamy soil will do the job best. So it is important to avoid swampy or heavy clay soil as plantain roots its waterlogging. And you must also ensure your soil has a pH of between 5.5 to 7.5. So just in case you do not know what the soil pH is a measure of the acidity or alkalinity of the soil, which determines the concentration of hydrogen ions in the soil solution. It is one most critical indicators of soil health, and it significantly influences many chemical and biological processes in the soil. So also you have to know that plantain is a heavy feeder, and it needs consistent supply of nutrients for strong plants and heavy bunches. So you have to observe, you have to take note of your soil type, you have to take notes and make sure your soil is rich in nutrients. In certain situations where your soil lacks essential nutrients, it is important for you to add organic matters to the soil, either through fertilizer, manure, or whatsoever is very much available to you. So next we talk about land preparation and spacing. So basically for land preparation, you need to clear the bushes, remove every top vegetation on your selected space for farm, either manually or mechanically, So after you clear the bushes, you remove tree stumps. Probably you have one or two trees on your land, cut off the trees and remove the stump. After that, you mark your planting rows. After marking your planting rows, you dig your planting holes, then you mix your topsoil with manure, you apply manure before planting. So during land preparation, one important area of consideration is proper spacing. So proper spacing is crucial to reduce competition for resources like water, sunlight, and nutrients, which will result in you having healthier plants, larger bunches, and increased yield. So it also helps with pest and disease management. It provides wind protection and can optimize labor and production cost. So yeah, back to the spacing. The required spacing for a successful plantain farm is about 2.5 to 3 meters apart in both directions. So 2.5 to 3 meters apart on the length, 2.5 to 3 meters apart on the breadth. But this can vary based on the variety and the condition of the sucker you're planting. So on to the next, you have to choose the best variety. You have to choose the best variety. So choosing the right plantain variety is crucial for high yield and a successful plantain farming. So the best variety often depends on your specific location, probably market demands and purpose. For instance, you could need your plantain for probably production of plantain chips or flour. These are the things you have to put into consideration when choosing a variety. So there are generally three varieties of plantain. We have the on, we have the false on variety, and we have the French on. So the French and the false on are the varieties of plantain that are favorable for commercial plantain farming due to their high yield potential. There is also a giant variety of plantain which produces larger and heavier bunches, but they take longer to fruit and they are more susceptible to wind damage. Next is choosing the best sucker for planting. This is different from a variety, this is your sucker type. So now choosing the best type of sucker for planting is very important as it will determine the overall yield of your farm. There are three types of sucker, namely the water sucker, the sod sucker, and the maiden sucker. So the best plantain sucker are the sod sucker or maiden edge sucker, which are healthy, disease-free, and have a well-developed root system with 3 to 5 leaves. So just in case you want to differentiate between the water sucker and the sod sucker, water sucker has a broad leaf. That is one major difference. It has a broader leaf, while the sod sucker has a narrow needle-like leaf. So a sod sucker is the best type of sucker you would want to use for your farm because it produces very well. It is strong and durable for a commercial plantain farm. It is also important to purchase your sucker from a reputable source such as a tissue culture laboratory. And one major importance is that you get uniform size of plantain suckers that will grow uniformly, they mature uniformly, and they bear their fruits uniformly. So you're going to have a uniform harvest, and this is the best thing you can think of, you can work towards on a commercial plantain farm. So you have to make sure your suckers are planted correctly in the accurate depth. So if they are planted too deep into the soil, they would rot eventually, and if they are planted too shallow, there is a high chance that they would not stand strong and would fall over, especially in windy situations. So the adequate depth for planting is typically 30 centimeters, but for larger suckers, a depth of 50 to 90 centimeters is required. And the hole should be wide enough and rich in organic matters such as compost or manure for best growth and yield. Next is fertilization and nutrition. Well, it is very true that plantain is a heavy feeder and there is need for adequate fertilizer application, either organic or chemical. And in all honesty, I recommend you use organic fertilizer, organic manure, because that is what I use on my farm. I have a collection of pig on my farm also, so I collect their waste, make sure it is decomposed before I use it on the farm. So I recommend you use organic compost, organic fertilizer for plantain farm. And the reason is that organic fertilizer is more cost effective, very much cheaper than chemical fertilizer, and you can actually acquire it just anywhere, anywhere. The best organic manure you can use is either poultry or pig manure. So next we talk about the mulching and moisture management. So mulching is one of the biggest secrets in plantain farming, as it helps to retain soil moisture by preventing direct sunlight. It suppresses weed and by that reduces cost of herbicide or labor for bush clearing. It also adds nutrients to the soil and protects the organic matter in the soil from either being washed away by rain or being dried up by severe sunlight. So for mulching, you can either use dry leaves, you can use rice husk, grass, or decomposed plant materials. And this would not only keep moisture in, but it also adds to the nutrients over time. So in plantain farming, there are some important farm management practices that must be observed. So these practices are very simple, but once you ignore them, it could make plantain farming quite complicated and eventually affect your yield. So weeding is one important farm practice, which is just you removing any unwanted plants, unwanted vegetation that is growing around your plantain stem to avoid competition for sunlight, water, and other essential nutrients. Also, you have to desucker, which is just removing excess unwanted sucker from your rhizome, from the surrounding of your plantain stem, and this would help your stem focus and supply essential nutrients to the vital parts and also for fruiting. So you also need to prune. Pruning is just you removing old leaves from a plantain stem. It's just like giving yourself a trim, making yourself look good. So it is essential for you to prune your plantain stem. Also, in situations where your plantain stems are fruited already and you notice they are leaning over, probably the weight of the bunch is too heavy for it to bear, then you might need to support with stakes. Staking is also important, just so you don't lose your plantain bunches when they are not yet mature and ready for harvest. So also irrigation is quite important, and irrigation is just you artificially supplying your field with water. Of course, in Nigeria we have two major seasons. We have the rainy and the dry season. So whenever it is dry season, you have to provide water to your plantain just so it doesn't run dry, so it doesn't lose water content. And lastly, we have the harvesting. So after 12 months, your plantain should be matured, should be with fruit already and ready for harvest. But firstly, you must know when your bunches are mature and ready for harvest. So when the fingers are full, when they are well rounded, and when they have the bright green color, then you should know that then it is ready for harvest. And just in case you have your plantain crops that are within your reach, you can feel them with your hand just to know how well rounded it is. And once you observe that, okay, this is ready for mature, you can just cut off a bunch, then cut off the stem at the base, just so you allow other suckers to grow eventually. So these basically are the fundamentals of plantain farming. Once you can do all the things I've mentioned in this video, then definitely you're going to have a stress-free plantain farming adventure. So if you have found this video valuable and educative, I'd like you to like, subscribe and share this video. And this is just the beginning. In Plantain Bubble, we are building a system that transforms agriculture into wealth, health and a global opportunity. So thank you for watching this video up to this very point. I really hope you have subscribed,